And for more on the new developments in this redistricting battle, I'm joined by anchor and reporter at our sister station in Albany, Tom Eschen. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. A lot developed overnight in terms of this legislation. We had just heard from senators there as they were talking about this. It actually passed there. Where do things stand in the Assembly? How are lawmakers going to move forward on this last day of session?
It did pass the Assembly late last night. I was on the set actually anchoring one of our shows and had the video up of the debate, which was going on for hours. The Republicans pushing back, similar to what you saw there between Mark Walczyk and Mike Gianaris in the Senate. So the Assembly did end up passing in this redistricting legislation. It's funny you had that between Michael Gianaris, the senator, the deputy majority leader there. I spoke to him in September, and I thought it was interesting. I asked him the question, why not just run better candidates, people that you think can win? And he said, gave me a similar answer that day as well. He said, well, this is just the situation we're in. He goes, well, yeah, that'd be great. But because of what's going on nationally, whether you agree with it or not, they have to fight fire with fire at this point. You had Joe Morelli, the congressman there out of Rochester, who came into the Capitol a month ago and said, well, this is an existential threat to the Republic. Star Wars type language going on here. And now we're seeing these changes made. And now we're set up, now that it's passed both chambers, it will now go to next year and next year's legislature, who will also have to pass it before it's on the ballot in 2027. So it all feels very urgent right now, but really this wouldn't have an impact until 2028 if voters approve it when it's on the ballot potentially in 2027.
And speaking of voters, I think it's important to note that a lot of GOP lawmakers had brought up last night that voters had voted yes on Proposition 1 back in 2014. We're talking about the Independent Redistricting Commission, for example. This kind of goes around that process as well. Can you explain the role, or maybe lack thereof, of the Redistricting Commission?
Yeah, that was a big part, as you mentioned, of the debate last night, the concern from that Republicans who say that it's now that more of the power is being put in the hands of the legislature compared to Independent Redistricting Commission itself. So this now allows the legislature, this legislation, if the Independent Redistricting Commission doesn't come up with a map once, that then now goes to the legislature. Before the IRC had more opportunities, something that we saw play out a couple years ago now when they made a map, and that map was thrown out, and the legislature drew it anyway. And you do have that moving of the goalpost a bit on either side of saying voters already had their voices heard here when it came to the IRC and saying that they wanted that. And you hear that the Republicans say, well, the voters, this is what they wanted. What the Democrats are trying to do is going against that. And then the Democrats are coming back and saying, well, the voters do have a choice here anyway if it's on the ballot in 2027, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm also wondering, when it comes to the seats that Democrats are expected to pick up, what is the response from lawmakers? I know you spoke to an expert specifically who was able to break down what a new map could look like.
Yeah, obviously we've been following this for months now, so we've had opportunities to really dig deep into this. And when you walk through the map, you already see it's gerrymandered, right? We're already there in some aspects. If you look at some of the intricacies, especially around New York City at that, and that's what you saw down in Staten Island earlier this year when there was a challenge to New York 11, where that's the only Republican in New York City, and that one was thrown out by a judge, that lawsuit, when they tried to get that part of the map redrawn. So when you look across the state, this does allow Democrats to be more creative in how they redraw these maps, to maybe pick up something in the North Country or elsewhere. But that they have to be very creative to do that, because there isn't a lot of wiggle room when it comes to trying to move these lines, whether that be near, outside or using parts of Rochester and digging that map into different parts of the state. I think it's going to be difficult, but this does give them a little bit more wiggle room. That's what I'm hearing. In terms of the number of seats, I think that's what everyone wants to know. They want it. You just mentioned there a moment ago, maybe as many as 4 or 5. That seems to be optimistic from what I've been hearing.
And what I'm really interested in is some of the responses from Democrats. It kind of seemed like Senator Gianaris was pretty direct in how he was responding to questions there, kind of saying that this is outright gerrymandering and it's not what people voted for. It's not bipartisan at all. Is there any Democratic voice that maybe you've heard from that is down the line or maybe trying to defend this in a different way?
I haven't heard that. Maybe I need to talk to more people, but it's been pretty much, well, if no one's doing it, we shouldn't do it. If everyone's doing it, then we need to fight fire with fire. That's basically been the line. And you have the finger pointing of who started all of this. And you see each side saying, well, the Democrats started this in New York a couple years ago. And then you said the Democrats say, well, the Republicans started this when Donald Trump told Texas to go pick up seats. So I think that the majority of the Democrats, at least the ones that I've spoken to, are all pretty much in line here with the fact that they look at what's going on nationally and saying, well, this is our opportunity to give people a voice in Congress and give them a fair shake when they see what's going on across the country.
Certainly a lot to pay attention to, especially as we head into the next session for sure, seeing how matters sort of play out there and maybe a potential appearance on the ballot for this issue. Tom Eschen from our sister station in Albany, thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thanks, Stephannie.
Hey, be sure to stay with ARC Rochester for your